Hey everybody, it is me, Shaniqua Cannon of Shaniqua CTV, and I'm here with the amazing Tanyka Gilbert. She is a certified transformational life coach. She is a psychotherapist and she is a minister. So today she's going to show us how it is that she is a rock star in her life, how she has gone from trauma to triumph. Now, y'all know this is the Ready to Rock movement, and we cover that tragedy to triumph. So let's welcome this rock star, Tanyka G. And Tanyka, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for that welcome. I've never been called a rock star, and so I like that. I do. I like that. So I'm just going to jump right on in there. Um, I've had not one, but I've had multiple traumas that have happened in my life, and I can say that one catapulted the next one. Okay, growing up in a very good Christian, godly two-parent household. My parents were loving parents, foster parents, as well as parenting their biological children and caring for other relatives' children as well. Growing up, I was a victim of childhood sexual abuse, which I learned how to hide very well, even from my parents. I hid it from parents. I hid it from doctors. I became an expert at hide. I became an expert at hide. It wasn't until I went to college. It was my freshman year of college, and I will never forget it. In college, how they have those dorm meetings, and the resident assistant and the resident director, come. The resident director held a meeting one Friday night, and she talked about her own childhood victimization. And it was so impactful that I had no, you've been in a place where you want to get up and run and hide, but you know that you can't, because the moment that you do, somebody's going to go, oh, wait a minute, not what's wrong with her, it triggered her. And because I didn't want that, I sat there. And see, I've always had this relationship with God. From a young age, I began to, when I understood what it meant to have a relationship with him at my early age, that's what I did. And so I was sitting there, and I literally really just was like, okay, I want to run God. I want to hide. I want to get away. I want you to shut her up. I want you to do all of these things, because I don't know how much more I'm going to be able to put on this facade, you know? And I literally felt in my spirit, God going, I don't want you to. And I was like, yeah, but I want to. This is what I've become accustomed to. When she was done speaking, and she spoke for 45 minutes, you all, as I'm sharing this with you, I can literally see her. I can literally see her. And when she was done, I went up to her and I said, you know what? I want to say thank you, but I also want to say, how could you? And she looked at me and she was like, because I did this for you. I shared my story after remaining silent for 23 years for you. That's how I could do what I did tonight. And she just hugged me. Now, y'all, I'm in school, right? Because my major is criminal justice. My minor is social work. Okay. That's a whole nother story in and of. That's a whole nother story. She said, when this is done, when everybody leaves, I want to spend some more time with you. She did just that. She let me share my tragedy with her. Then she said, I'm going to give you this number and I want you to call them. They're there on Saturdays. And it was a counseling agency that specialized in working with women who have been dealing with sexual assault, with incest, and that's what I was hiding. A cousin viciously, when I tell you viciously molested me. And again, I learned how to hide it. Okay, one of the things with me, one of my traumas was because I was always told that I was pretty. That's why that was happening to me. And so I didn't want to be pretty. So I learned veils a whole lot of ways. One of the ways that I veiled it, especially going through my college years, was through relationships. And I'm jumping forward and I'll come back, was through relationships. I veiled my hurt. I veiled my pain. I veiled my shame. I veiled my disappointment. I veiled the fact that I thought that I wasn't pretty in relationships. I veiled it all in relationships. So she gives me this number. Saturday morning, I actually call the number and I get a live person. I hung up. I called back. It seemed like an eternity to me, but it was probably only about 2 or 3 minutes. In reality, I called back, same voice. I hung up. It's like, nah. I'm ready for the you have reached. I call back a third time. This is what she says. Hi, my name is Bonnie. I know this is the same person. I don't need your name. I just need you to know that I'm here. And that's when I said, where's here? Their office was located 10 minutes from my college dorm, so I could easily walk. And you all, that's what I did. Bonnie listened to me talk about how scared I was to call there and how terrified I was to come. She didn't ask me what happened to me. She met me right where I was. And so we talked on the phone for 20 minutes. And then I made an appointment. Bonnie helped me begin my journey. I stayed with Bonnie for 6 months. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot. You all are going to hear me say on more than one occasion that the road to healing is a journey. It's a process. It is not an event. I'm 43 years old. I started that journey at 19, and I'm still walking it. And I'm pretty confident that with each passing day, I'm still going to walk the journey because healing is not an event. It is a process. It is a journey. And it comes in stages. Healing comes in stages. So fast forward a little bit. I stayed with Bonnie for 6 months, and it was a good journey. It was a good journey. But I stopped because where Bonnie wanted to go with me, I wasn't willing to go. I didn't think I was ready. In reality, that hindsight is 2020. I was scared to death because of the fact that I was going to have to go into a new level of pain. And I was going to have to really, really begin to look at me. See, one of the reasons why I'm sharing this with you all is because not a lot of people like to talk about the nasty side of healing. Healing is not pretty. Healing is painful because you allow yourself and you allow God to go into those wounds, those deep wounds, those wounds that you have hidden, those soul wounds. And you all, I had some soul wounds because let me tell you, at 19, while I was dealing with this, in my church, I was also the youth president. So I'm serving in ministry with all these veils and I'm hiding. And one of the places where I learned to hide the best was in the church. I learned to hide real well. They taught me how to hide real well because some of them were hiding too. And so I learned how to hide well. I found myself getting into a lot of dysfunctional relationships where I was entering with men, and I'm 19 at the time, 19, 20, 21, 22. And I'm finding myself entering relationships with men who can't give themselves emotionally completely, because some of them have scars too. But then because I had so much unresolved issues from the molestation, I had gained all of these false beliefs about myself, about love, and even about relationships. And so in gaining those, I looked for those lies that I thought were my truth in men and in relationship. And if I didn't get it, then I went to a different relationship looking for the dysfunction, because I saw myself as damaged goods. I saw myself as, if you're not lying to me, if you're not disrespecting me, then you don't love me. And I need somebody that's going to love me. And if you're not cheating on me, you ain't loving me. And so for years, you all, I was in these types of relationships. Why? Because I had so much unresolved pain, and I wasn't healing, and I was afraid to heal. I could talk about healing. Now, you all, by this time, I'm 22, 23. I've graduated with my bachelor's in criminal justice, my minor in social work, and I've entered grad school. Going through relationships. Oh, let me back up because I forgot a trauma. My freshman year, after I had started talking to Bonnie and finished in those 6 months, I'm a victim of date rape by a minister. But I keep that silent too. For many reasons. Number one, because it's added to my shame. Another reason is because, and y'all hear me now, and I'm going to say this because we need to talk about it in the church. We got to stop talking about it. And I'm not trying to do this denomination name drop. I'm really not. But as much as we look and we say, certain denominations have this incest and all of this molestation going on, it's in every denomination. And some is just hidden better than others. It's in everyone. And I talk about it because we need to talk about it. We're not going to heal keeping it in secret. And Christ, he died for each and every one of us. And for us, if he can take us through the process of healing and forgiveness and restoration, because he redeemed us from the fall in the garden, who are we not to be an intercessor and redeem those who have quote unquote fallen? He's done that for us. I had to learn that, and it took me years to learn that. So back to the date rape. I keep it hidden because there's so much shame and there's so much guilt. And yes, because I'm told within the leaders of the church, because I went to a leader and told a leader what happened. You can't tell nobody that because we're about to ordain him. And so I keep it hush hush. It comes out in other ways. I never verbalized it for a lot of years, but it came out in my relationships, because now I am so feeling like I'm beyond damaged goods. I've convinced myself that at this point, God doesn't even want me, let alone love me. And so my relationship with him is all jacked up because I'm doing the also, God, if you love me, how could you let this happen to me? And I had to come to realize, and this isn't part of my healing journey, I had to come to realize that, God didn't do that to me. A human did. And so God loved me enough for me to blame him, but also he loved me enough to correct me and show me the truth. And that's a process in and of itself. That's a process in and of itself. So we've got the childhood trauma, we've got the date rape, and then we go to walking out for so many years, because I have this false belief and this false perception of what love is supposed to look like, what relationship is supposed to look like. And I'm telling myself that relationship looks like this, it hurts. Relationship looks like this, you're lied to, you're cheated on. Relationship looks like this, you give of your body, because that's going to be the only way that you're going to know that you're loved. And so for years, I'm holding on to this. So much so that I enter relationship after relationship. I also had to deal with sexual addiction. Yes, I did. And sexual addiction is a lot more than just, oh, you're in it for sex. Sex is just a manifestation of it. It's not the root. There's so much that goes to it. And so, at times when I'm feeling unloved, and I'm not trying to be graphic or anything, I'm going to use wisdom here. Okay, I'm going to use wisdom. But it got to the point where I'm entering relationship after relationship, and I'm giving myself, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term love addiction. A relationship addiction. I'm so addicted with the relationship. I'm not after the love of the man. I'm after the love of the relationship. I'm in love with being in love, or what I thought love was, because my definition of love was all screwed up. And so I've got multiple relationships, and I find myself, as part of my sexual addiction, that shame and that guilt and wanting to be close and wanting to be connected and feel connection, or wanting a level of intimacy, not just sexual intimacy. I had been so conditioned by my abuse that intimacy meant sex. And so I was always craving and always chasing intimacy. And I only found it in sex. Or so I thought. And that cycles, so you keep chasing it. You keep chasing it. It's like the person, that gets that first hit of whatever their drug of choice is, or that first drink of alcohol, and they're always looking to get that same feeling from that first use. That was my sex addiction. Because I'm always trying to find that love and that affirmation and that feeling. And so when either you're done with me, or you're not giving me what I think I need, I'm done with you, I move on to the next one. And it wasn't until God really, really began to deal with me. This is what happened. I'm going from trauma to transition. My transition looked like this. I'm laying in a hospital bed because I get diagnosed with a blood cancer that's extremely rare at the time. I'm laying in a hospital bed. And the whole time, you all, because I still got this relationship with God, which is really, really confusing to me. Because on the one hand, I'm telling God that he could never love me because I'm damaged good, because of all the poor choices that I'm making, because I'm serving him and I'm faking it, and I'm just like, because trust me, I can hick a Messiah and I can shout just like the rest of them. I mean, I'll shout you if I wanted to, and shout over my stuff and my junk and my pain, and I'm sitting there in the hospital bed, and I'm laying down and I'm crying out to God. And I tell God, I'm like, you know what? If you help me through this, I'll do whatever it is you want me to do. You know what God's response to me was? Will you let me love you? My response to him, you can't. Because look at all the stuff I've done. Look at all the stuff I've been through. And how could you love a messed up person like me. I am beyond damaged goods. And God's response to me was, but I love you even with all your junk. And if you let me in, I'll clean you up. Now that was a process, you all. And I'm still walking that process because God loves me enough. This is what my transition looks like now. He loves me enough to know that he can't clean me up all at once. He's got to clean me up in stages. And that's why I say healing is a process, because the first thing he had to grab a hold of was my thought life. He had to show me the lies that I had begun to believe and replace them with truth. And so my transition looked like really naming my lies, naming the things that I had spoken onto me and I had allowed other people to speak onto me. Going back to my cousin. Because you're pretty, this is why this happens to you. No, it was because you chose to violate me. That's why that happened. You chose to violate me. The beauty that God gave me had nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing. So that was a big lie that God had to work with me on. Another one, and there are a lot, y'all. there are a lot. Another big one that he had to help me with in my transition was the fact that he couldn't love me because of what happened to me. God had to let me see that I am not what happened to me. That is not my identity. And that is not your identity. Whatever happened to you is just that. It is what has happened to you. It is not who you are. It is what you have experienced. And there is a difference. One of the things that Bonnie helped me to see, because Bonnie helped me in my transition too, she helped me to see this, that just because this happened doesn't mean it has to continue. You know, the cycle could be broken. I had to do the work. And again, this is why I say to you all, a lot of us don't like to talk about the nasty part of healing. Healing isn't pretty, but it's necessary. Healing isn't pretty, but it's worth it. And healing is a process. It is not an event. Bonnie would always say to me, you talk to me about you wanting to heal. You're not going to heal if you don't do the work. And I share that with you. You're not going to transition from trauma to triumph if you don't do the work. The amount of time isn't what's important. It's that you do the work. I said to you all earlier, I'm 43 years old and I'm still having to do the work because God loves me so much that he heals me in layers. So he had to start with my thought life. I share with individuals, especially women that I work with, that everything begins with a thought. You move from a thought to a belief, and from a belief to an action. And this is why God tells us that it's so important that we guard our hearts and that we guard our minds, that we guard our thought life rather. And we've got to think on things that are lovely and that are just and that are pure. Why? Because where we think is what we tend to believe, and what we believe is what we will act out. So he's dealing with my thought life. He's dealing with my belief system, and then he can begin to deal with my actions. And I say this too, and I get in trouble for saying it all the time. You know, in a church, what we want to do is we want to get you in, yeah, but then we want you to be a masterpiece immediately. And we want to show you how to do it instead of loving on you with the love of Christ, so that Christ and you can do the work. Because you don't heal if you don't do the work. And it doesn't mean that we don't get guidance and that we don't get direction and we don't get correction also. Doesn't mean that. But we've got to learn how to do it. And we've got to learn how to do it with love so that it can be received with love. Because God never came at me like this, you whore. He never came at me like that. He came at me, my beloved, my child, the one I adore, the one I sent my son for. You're calling yourself damaged goods. I'm calling you jewel. I'm calling you mine. That was a part of my transition too. I had to let people come around me that could teach me love the right way. Men and women. Because see, I didn't trust a lot of women. I didn't trust a lot of women. That was very, very hard for me. Because, I'm feeling, I'm pretty, and I would get, oh, she thinks she's all that because she got long hair, and she thinks she all that because, she's skinny. Y'all, I rocked a size 0 to 3 until I was 26 years old. I did. But you know what? That was my way of hiding. One of them anyway. I hid behind that. Because if you saw me as pretty and you didn't like that, I knew you were going to stay away from me. So I had to work about it. I wouldn't let people in. So God had to work with me on that. A lot more transitions, you all. A lot more transitions. I told you I worked with Bonnie for 6 months, and when Bonnie wanted to go to a place of healing that I didn't want to go to, I stopped therapy. I stopped it, and I didn't resume it again, you all, until I was 23 years old. 19 to 23. Yep. And when I started it, it wasn't by choice at all. I was in a master's program at Howard University, and I had to go through therapy for a class. And I couldn't skip the class so that I didn't have to go through therapy. But it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, because I had to face the dysfunction of my dysfunctional relationships. I had to begin to do the work. I had to begin to look at the patterns of the types of people I was choosing, because I was choosing the same man with a different face. I was always in the same type of relationship, dysfunctional. One that fed my insecurities, not one that uplifted me and spoke to me as a woman. And honey, let me tell you, I was choosing them in and outside of the church. Let me just be real. Because this is one of the things I came to realize. Anybody in a leadership position, anybody in church, period, is human first. We get messed up by the titles. We begin to assume that because they're minister or pastor or bishop so-and-so, that they're not going to do this and they're not going to think. Well, they're human first. And I had to learn that. Another transition. So let me fast forward some more years. In and out of dysfunctional relationships. I finally get to the place, even in my relationship with God, where I'm like, you know what? Part of me's tired of faking the funk, and part of me ain't. Because I've been hiding so long and I've been playing so long that I've become comfortable with it, in essence. It's become comfortable for me. I know what to expect when I keep you at a distance. At one hand, I'm saying that I want love and I want you to love me and I want this healthy relationship. But on the other hand, I really don't want it because it scares me to death, because the very thing that I want, Paul says it best. That which I desire to do, I don't. And that which I don't desire to do is what I end up doing. And that's Tanyka version, okay? That's First Tanyka 1:1. Okay. Paul says it better, but that's First Tanyka 1:1. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, God, help me. And he's like, I need you to take the veils off. I need you to take the veils off. I'm going behind the veil. Actually, that's the name of one of my companies, Behind the Veil Consultations. That's where I do my therapy with sex addicts. And so I'm like, okay, God, I've got to get real with you. And I've got to really bare myself and bare my soul, let you do something with the wounding of not just my heart, but the wounding of my soul, because it's in our soul that our emotions dwell. And God has to get into them. I told y'all healing ain't pretty, and it sure enough don't feel good. But that's where we've got to allow God to get into. And I had to let him get into those places. And it was a challenge. I'm not going to lie. It was a challenge because not only had I become comfortable with the pain, I didn't know what healing was going to feel like. I knew what pain was going to feel like. I knew that. I didn't know what healing was going to feel like. Whitney Houston sang that song, I Didn't Know My Own Strength. I didn't think that I had the strength to get on the other side of pain. With or without God. I didn't think I had it. But I learned it daily. And it was a process. I journaled a lot. I got into a support group with women who were further ahead in their healing journey than I was, so that I could see where I could get. And that's important. You got to see where you can get to. I would remain comfortable, with people that were on level 1 of healing. Somebody got to grow at some point. Somebody got to grow at some point. So fast forwarding some more, I'm letting God do this healing work. I'm doing the healing work through therapy that I've entered again because I'm in school. I got to, and I got to a certain point. She wanted to go to another level of healing. Nah, peace out. Because now I got to start to look. Now it was time for Tanyka to start looking at the decisions and the choices that I was making and blaming it on my victimization. Because you reach a point when you got to stop blaming what you experienced on why you're making the choices that you're making today. At 23, going into 24, I couldn't say because what happened to me when I was 6. Because now it's what Tanyka's choosing to do. As a result of unhealed wounds, yes, but I'm still making a choice. And that's where she wanted to go with me. No, bye. So I held out again, y'all. You want to know when I went back to therapy? I was engaged. At this time, I'm now 29. And I'm engaged. Dysfunctional relationship. Completely dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional. Not just his dysfunction. I can only really speak to mine. Okay? Engaged. I'm held at gunpoint going into my apartment. Here's another trauma. Held at gunpoint going into my apartment. I see the man's face. I'm actually, I'm on the phone talking to my mom on my cell phone while I'm walking into my apartment complex. And this man, 6'2", never forget, I can still see his face right now. 6'2", wearing a black and gray sweatshirt, hooded sweatshirt, and black pants and black Timbs. Pulls a gun out, sticks it right between my eyes. You scream, I pull the trigger. I scream. He pulls the trigger. Bullet doesn't come out. When I screamed, there was a neighbor in my apartment complex that had her patio door open. She came out and screamed too. The moment he moved the gun, the bullet came out. the moment he moved. I felt it go that way. As a result of that, now I'm working now. I'm licensed and working for the government. I developed post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Why? Because now, see, this is what happens. When you've experienced trauma and you learn how to hide it and you learn how to hide it well, that becomes your comfort zone. And so I went back into hiding. I went back into masking. I could mask the fact that I was having nightmares daily. And I had even begun to have what they call the daymares, when I could be at work and I could zone out and I'm reliving the trauma. I'm scared to death of people walking up behind me. Doesn't matter if it's daytime or nighttime. My fiance walked up behind me one day because I needed to go to the ATM. He was walking up just to stand behind me to protect me because he knew that I was scared of people walking up on me. I freaked out. It was daytime. The trauma happened at night. I'm not sleeping. I lost like 20 something pounds in a month. I started missing work, calling out. My supervisor called me into the office one day. I did decide to go to work and was like, we need to talk. And y'all, I'm a licensed social worker at this point, dealing with people with PTSD. She calls me in the office. We need to talk. What's going on with you? In the past 30 days, I've seen this pattern in you. And you all, guess what? The night that happened, I was back to work 3 days later. Why? Because, I've been through worse. Lying to myself. I'm all right. I'm fine. Partly because I'm thinking everybody expects that of me anyway. And so I can't disappoint them. Back to those dysfunctional beliefs. And so, our bodies have a way of getting us to a place that we don't necessarily want to go to. My body's, I'm not going to agree with this anymore. You're getting 1 or 2 hours of sleep if you're getting that much, and then you're going to work 8-10 hours, which is a stressful job, and you might work 12 on a good day or 13. I can't cooperate with this anymore. Losing weight, not sleeping, can't pretend anymore. I was real good at smiling and hiding tears. Real good at it. They were like, please, I'm going to tell on you too. Sitting at my desk crying. What's wrong? Oh, it's my allergies. Yeah, right. Okay. You know how we do. Yeah. So my supervisor calls me in. This is when I go back to therapy, y'all, to deal with the PTSD of the robbery. We work through that. And she goes, but I want to deal with the other traumas. The ones you haven't talked to me about. The funny thing, y'all, her name was Bonnie too. God will bring you full circle. He will bring you full circle. So we work through it. Working through it, I get married, y'all. Now, I said a dysfunctional marriage because we were two broken individuals thinking that a marriage was going to make us whole. Marriage is two people becoming as one. Marriage doesn't make you one. You become as one, which is a process. But both of us thinking, we go ahead and we get married. Do we love each other? Absolutely. But we're thinking, I'm broke, you broke. Together we be whole. Together, y'all, we was broke. Two broken individuals not dealing with our pain and our dysfunction. Because, he had his own traumas. And so we brought all of that together. We have a child. He leaves 4 weeks after our child is born, 7.5 weeks early. Yeah. try to make it work. I mean, moves to a whole nother state. Try to make it work. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Now you add the shame and the guilt of now a separation and a divorce, and you got a child. Trauma. I'm going to take this to my triumph. Where am I now? God uses what we allow him to use. He used every single one of the traumas that I have shared with you to reach others who are dealing with that trauma and more. That is what really, really I get up for every day. Of course, my daughter, of course, my family, yes. But to speak to women that have had traumas, I'm not going to minimize mine because I don't want you to minimize yours. But have experienced traumas like mine and some. My triumph is that all of the pain that I went through, didn't like it. It showed me that I didn't know my own strength. On top of that, triumph, all of that pain was so that I could be here today. So I could share with you so that you could see. Remember when I said earlier, I had to get into therapy groups where women were further ahead than I was so I could see where I needed to get to and I could see where I could be. Look at where you're headed. Look at where you're headed. Triumph. Of course, because I'm also a minister, and that's a lifestyle for me. It's not a title. It's not a title. When God made me the promise that everything that I had experienced, although the enemy meant it for evil, but he would turn it around for the good, for the saving of lives. This day, Genesis 50:20. Triumph. Because if I can share my hurt, my pain, even my mistakes and my mess ups, and I don't call them failures. The poor choices that I made weren't failures. They were poor choices. The only failure will be to stay down and do nothing. That's when you fail. But when you make an attempt, even when I stopped therapy, that wasn't failure. I stopped. But I got back up. Triumph. To share with you today. Now, do I like any experience that I had? Absolutely not. And I know we give this cliche, but I do it all again. I used to say that because it sounded like a good cliche, oh girl, please. But you know what? I wouldn't be where I am today without those experiences. Now, could I be a clinician? Absolutely. Could I be a life coach? Absolutely. But would I be one that talks to you from an authentic place, from a place of pain, from a place that says, you know what? I didn't want the healing journey because there was a period of time when I liked my dysfunction. You know how we talk about, sinning? And, oh, I didn't like sinning. Stop lying. Yes, you did. Because if you didn't like it, you wouldn't have repeated it. Some of the stuff I did, I liked. Let's just be real. Some of the stuff I did, I liked. And I proved it because I did it again and again and again and again. But when I got to the place that it wasn't working for me, hiding wasn't working, lying to myself wasn't working, allowing me to abuse me wasn't working. That's how I learned through these things. God wasn't mad at me. He wasn't angry. He wasn't punishing me because I had no control over what I did as a child. The date rape, There was nothing I did to deserve that. Absolutely not. There's nothing that you did to deserve whatever it is that you've experienced. When people in places of authority abuse that authority, that's a decision they made. There's nothing that you could do. Nothing to warrant that. Triumph, coming to that place of truth. Triumph, being here before you today to let you see my flaws, to let you know just some of my shortcomings, to let you know I made poor choices. I dated a married man. The moment that I found out that he was married, child, I tried to tear his head off. Just being real. And I ended up apologizing to his wife because it was the right thing to do. No matter what he did or didn't, had nothing to do with him, but because it was the right thing to do. And it gave me healing. Because another man wasn't going to give me the healing. Not a human one anyway. Tools. Therapy. Support groups. I pray you see this as a tool, being honest with myself. Because I had to admit where I was. I had to admit that I didn't like the choices I was making. I had to admit to myself that I wanted different, I needed different, and I had to be willing to do different. I had to be willing to do it. I had to let myself, and I had to let God, and I had to let the therapist, and I had to let the support group into the places of pain that I didn't want to go to. I had to let myself walk the nasty part of healing. And I had to do the work, because if I didn't do the work, I wasn't going to heal. Tools, a summit just like this, where you can come and hear about yourself and others and have to look at you. Michael Jackson said it, y'all. I told you I'm big on music. Man in the mirror. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, which means you're going to have to ask yourself, do you want to let go of the pain? Do you want to let go of being familiar with what it looks like and what it feels like, to convince yourself that you'll always be a victim? Because I did that too. Tool. I had to recognize, and I had to believe, and a lot of times, ladies, I had to walk that healing walk by changing my self-talk. Even when I didn't believe it, I had to say it anyway. I had to tell myself, you know what, you are beautiful, even though I didn't believe it for a very, very long time, because it wasn't in the believing it that mattered. It was in the doing it. Sometimes we have to do things when we don't feel like it, and we do it every day. Because don't we get up out of bed and go to work when we don't feel like it? Do it every day. And so I had to learn how to do it even when I didn't feel like doing it, because sometimes the feeling like it comes in the doing. I hope I've encouraged you. I hope I've been authentic and sharing of myself. I'm still walking this journey. I said this at the beginning. I'm 43 years old and I'm still walking the healing journey. You all, God said to me, the next phase of my healing, I had to do in public. And initially I was like, nah, nope. It's been you and me. We've been doing this together. We can keep it like that. He was like, no. But now I see why. Now I see why. You're worth it. You're worth it. I pray I've helped.
And this was amazing. I don't even know if I have questions for you because you covered it all so thoroughly. Like this is gonna bless somebody. It is a full message. Note for the VA. I think this needs to be the last one. Because this is a way to go out. I think you've spoken so much into life, into the women who are going to watch this, into the men who are going to watch this, into the children who might stumble upon this. Do I have questions? I'm taking notes and I'm like, she's covering it. But I did have one question where you talked about how you were looking for the dysfunctional relationships because if they weren't dysfunctional, you didn't.
I didn't
You
feel
think they were
comfortable.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that you didn't feel comfortable. And so there's this saying that women are looking for the bad boys, right? And
Oh, yeah.
men get so upset because a woman's looking for a bad boy. But what have you seen in your experience as a counselor, as a psychotherapist, as a minister, as a person who's been on that side? Who are these women?
They are hurting women. And they are women who feel and think and believe that if I dated the bad for a good 7 years, minimum 7. If you weren't a bad boy, I didn't pay you no attention. Seriously, if you weren't a bad boy, I didn't pay you any attention. And at that time, I was wearing high heels and church skirts. You know, the ones that are below the knee. I was your college student. I was your grad student. I was your young people's president. I was the bishop's goddaughter. Yeah. Yeah. These are women who today are CEOs. These are women who are business owners, who are entrepreneurs. These are women who are mothers, who are wives. These are women who have a college degree, a GED, and a PhD. The women looking for the bad boys, the women looking for the dysfunctional relationships. There are women who do not recognize their worth. There are women who believe that their esteem and their identity comes in a relationship, not in a man, in a relationship. Man is the byproduct.
Wow. So you just mentioned that they're in the boardroom and they're in church and they're all over the place. What would you say to those women? Because that on the outside, that looks like you got it together. On the outside, it looks like life is perfect. So if the picture looks good, what will get the help? What will make them get the help? What will get them over that shame? Because we talk about the shame. I mean, if you're leading HR, how are you going to tell people you're broken? So
that can come about in many ways. For me, it came about because God had placed people in my life. And like when I was in grad school, I had to go through therapy because of a class. It wasn't because I was looking for it. Sometimes life circumstances or life situations will lead us to that. If you just lost your job and you're going to the career counselor because you're trying to find another one, and you go in there and you bust out crying. I don't know why I'm crying. I'm trying to find a job and I'm so hurt. And why are you hurting? And you mean to say because I lost my job, but you say because my husband left me? Wasn't a Freudian slip. It's where you were. It can be because you get sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And because you finally reach the point where therapy is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Group is better than nothing. Let me go in here and just see what they're talking about. Or you might have a family member that says, you know what? I think you need to talk to somebody. And you go because you want to shut them up, not because you really want to go talk to somebody. I see it. My husband or my wife said, I need to come talk to you to save my marriage or save my relationship. So your motivation isn't change for you. Your motivation is to keep something. That happens.
Right.
That happens. Sometimes it's because if I'm going to hold on to my job said I had to come. A lot of things can lead a person to seeking the help. Sometimes it's because I don't know what else to try. I'm just coming to you because I don't know what else to do. Like sometimes how we go to God as a last resort. God, I know I did. I was like, I done tried everything else. Let me come talk to you.
Yep. That's something like, how do you help them get over the shame? Like, what is something you could say to say, go get it. Go get the
Shame is
help.
one of the most debilitating you can experience. It is. And shame is not that you can't walk through. You're not going to get over shame. You're going to work through shame. You're not going to get over it. You're going to work through it. Shame is nothing more than a false sense of who you are based on what you've experienced. Just a false sense of who you are based on what you experience. Shame tells you that because you experienced this, that you're no good, that you're dirty. It's a coat that we take on. Other people don't put it on us. We actually shame ourselves. People can say, oh, you should be ashamed. Just because they say it means nothing. If I take the words that you have spoken and I put them on like a coat, I've brought the shame.
Yeah.
And just like you may have put it on, you can take it off.
I love that. I love it. So the tools that you gave were seek therapy, like right off the bat. Seek it. Get the help. Find a support group so you can see how to get or what is on the other side of this. Be honest with yourself and be willing to do something differently. Change your self-talk and then start doing until you can believe and live it. You know, so this has been amazing. I could talk to you forever. I swear, I feel like you're like my best friend right now. How can we keep in touch with you? How do we get in touch with you? How do we keep this relationship going? How do we seek you if we want to work more with you?
Okay. I offer what we call confidentiality calls because as a coach, I work with women and couples who are dealing with infidelity and sexual addiction in their relationship or their marriage. If you're a pastor, if you're a minister, you don't have to be in the church or leadership in the church. I work with any and everybody. What you can do is to schedule that confidentiality call. My link is bit.ly/confidential with Tanyka, and it's all lowercase. That'll take you directly to my calendar. That way you don't have to play phone tag with me. You know, to schedule an appointment. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Periscope at Tanyka G is my handle. I'm on Facebook. You can go to my personal page. You can go to my fan page, which is Real Talk Tanyka. I have a group specifically for women that is called Real Life Real Talk with Tanyka. And that's where we talk about life, love, and relationships, and we get down to the nitty gritty. I bring guests in, and you have daily posts of encouragement. My website is under construction. It's taken longer than I would like for it to take, but I want it done right. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Facebook. If your spouse is a sex addict, or you're dealing with infidelity, I have a separate group, which is called the Safe Place Community, where you can come in and you can get encouragement. You can ask your questions. I'm going to be beginning in March. I used to do a weekly call on Monday mornings, where you could call in either live or catch the replay, and it just gives encouragement. You have to join the Safe Place Community in order to get that information. I'm all about safety. Okay. I'm all about safety. So, but if you join that Facebook group, you'll get that information.
Again,
You
that's
can
Tanyka, Tanyka.
Yep. So, let me see. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I got 3 different Twitter accounts. But if you follow Tanyka G, that's the main one that I do. That's how you can reach me.
Okay. Well, guys, we're going to say goodbye to Tanyka tonight, but you will want to join us live if you are able to. So thank you again, Tanyka, for your time, your tools, and your story. And I'll see you guys later. Good night.
Thanks.